Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us this May 13th. We will first start with a fleet update from Waylon Sutton.
Good morning. How are you? Jack, commissioners? Okay. So our semi-annual fleet update. Start with staff. The fleet department remains fully staffed.
They give you put it in, like right in front of it, like that. No, not on there, just lay it down. There you go.
Perfect. The fleet department remains fully staffed. The mechanics are growing in experience and taking advantage of the trainings that are offered. We do free trainings down at Kenworth. So they're growing. They're all pretty young, the mechanics, but Al in the office, I feel very, very positive and fortunate to have the staff that I do out there in the fleet department. The replacements, 2025 replacements are going well. We do have the new T880 pull tractor. It was delivered at the end of March, so in the first quarter. And we have the auction closing on the 127 that it replaced this week. So we should have the replacement in and the old one gone here shortly. The gooseneck trailer for that mini excavator that we was approved and we ordered should be here this week as well. So those are the two replacement vehicles that were approved, and they're both on schedule to be done and in service here shortly. So I feel positive about getting those done here close to the first quarter. The shop, we have the wings off of the motor graders. Everything's ready for summer. MAG started, as you guys know, probably this week. Last week, it was ready for last week, but with the weather, we weren't able to get started. But we do have all the winter stuff away, and we're fully ready for summer. We're continuing to perform normal maintenance and repairs throughout the county fleet. We've replaced over 17 windshields since January 1st for our vehicles. Couple ones that we've done twice. The transit facility, they seem to pick up rocks and sheriff's patrol vehicles. They've picked up a few. I think some of them we've even done twice already, just because of the use that they've been getting. We've only had one accident so far this year. That vehicle was backed into down at the extension or the treasurer's clerk's office down there. I think this is our fourth accident in the last calendar year. That was not, the vehicle is sitting there and it's been backed into. 3 of them have taken off. We don't know what happened or anything. One lady came in and that one, she didn't even cause any damage. So out of the 3 of the 4 that have been parked down there, just sitting, but I think the number on this one was about $1,800. So even if we were using our insurance and taking the deductible, it's costing us $1,500. So we're getting close to that accumulating. It's getting up there. And, when you fill out your accident form, it says, was this accident avoidable? And I look at that question and I think about, from the driver's perspective, no, because we weren't even in the vehicle. But from the county's perspective, was it avoidable? It's just kind of sitting. We don't really have much parking. I don't know. That's something to think about, I guess, if moving those vehicles might make it avoidable because they're kind of just sitting there. But I think we spoke about that in my last semi-annual. Ronnie told me he was going to talk to Urbanzik about maybe letting us park the county vehicles, not the personal people who are going to work, but the county vehicles in that upper lot up there. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if any progress, if that ever happened or anything, but I thought I'd mention that to you again. There is some parking up there. I don't know the relationship, if it's usable, but it might save us some accidents if we could park our vehicles up there.
So as I know we talked about this, but are the vehicles that are getting hit, are they on the side where the grow domes are?
Correct. Right across from the charging station. Yep, right there.
So there's a lot of them. I know we're parking like we're supposed to park, but there's 2 vehicles usually there that I see when I go down. Can't we park them alongside the building?
I think the people are using the parking spaces alongside of the building, like where you would go into Mitzi, like that side of the building, right? I think those spaces are being used for the personal parking, personal people's parking. Right. You could put the county cars there.
No, I'm talking where they are currently parked, just parked instead of
parallel parking them.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, we might lose a few, you might lose a few spots that way, but that is an option for us too. to
Well,
park in a different way.
At the end of the day, right, when they're gonna leave or
Mhm.
maybe parking them that way because is that when it's happening, when nobody's really there
We
or?
really don't know. It's like they go out to their car and they see it,
I don't
so.
know. I think we need to come up with a better solution,
Mhm.
cause it's costing us too much money.
Mhm.
And, is that maybe just having them stored out at Road and Bridge, you
Mhm.
know? It might make it a little inconvenient when they need it,
It could.
but at the end of the night, maybe that's where they park it.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think we could come up, maybe this will all be resolved once an administration building gets built, but in the meantime,
There's still a couple years, yep,
yeah,
on that lease.
Yeah.
So it's something that I think is gonna be in our arena here to
Mhm.
deal with and think about for next year or two. Mhm.
so,
I could mention that and we can give that a try. I know the first couple accidents happened. The first one that I remember was 4th of July last weekend when nobody was around. The parking lot was full of people with,
that's the time we.
it was a weekend and no one was around and, well, and there is a lot of traffic on a daily basis back there,
Right.
but I will mention that maybe parking, we can sure try that out.
Right, yeah,
Okay, any other questions?
no, thank you.
Moving on to the bigger projects we're doing in the fleet, Wagner Cat in Durango has completed the certified rebuild of unit 159, which is a roller. It is back in service. I should have that final invoice today or tomorrow. We should be able to get that paid. He believes it was within that 10%. So it's awesome news to have that ready before they're done with MAG, so that roller can go back into service. It looks really nice. It looks brand new for a machine that's 10, 15 years old, and it's a fraction of the price. So I'm really happy with that certified rebuild that was done.
And they do that in Durango.
They do. Mhm.
Cool.
Yep, and it's very expensive, but when you compare it to a new vehicle, it was worth doing. This old machine doesn't have DEF fluid, and the problems that come with the heavy machinery running that DEF at idle all the time. So for a lot of different reasons, it made sense. And then I'm very happy with the look of it too. We haven't used it because we're doing MAG and they don't use a lot of rollers with MAG. But I'm very excited for them to get out there and use that and have a solid report coming back. The next project, Unit 70, we were putting a stainless steel water tank on that. The tank on there was rusted out. You guys approved replacing it with a stainless tank. That tank is with the tariffs and the steel that is going on, it has been delayed. It's in progress getting built at Largo, but there's still 30 to 60 days out. And they told me 30 to 60 days when we had ordered it, and it's stretched another 30 to 60. So it won't be ready. They'll probably use the water truck all summer. We'll probably shut that down in the fall and replace that stainless steel tank at that point in time. Because it's going to take a lot of service or a lot of time out of service to replace that tank. So we'll probably let them use it this summer, replace that tank in the fall, and be ready to, I know there's a couple mag bars, but we've been talking about spraying our own product too. So that one will be ready to do that probably by next year. We've completed the replacement of a transmission on unit 121. And that wraps up the big projects that we've done in the shop here this spring. Disposal of assets and attachments is the last thing I have on my projects here. As you guys know, Road and Bridge has purchased 3 new mag tanks, 40-foot big container tanks to hold mag chloride. It's taken up some space in the yard. We've done a little bit of shuffling and rearranging. But there's a lot of stuff out in the yard that has not been touched since I've been with the county at 2 years. And I have like Weed and Pest come to me and say, I don't use this tank anymore. I want to get rid of it. Road and Bridge has attachments for motor graders that we've sold off when we got those 2 new ones a couple years ago. So there's 12 by 12 space just with these old attachments. So there's a bed that we've taken off and put a flatbed on one. The bed was rusted out and dumped. So I've got a lot of this stuff sitting out there. It's not necessarily a capital asset, I don't think, because the truck was purchased with that bed and then we've switched the bed out. So there's quite a bit of stuff compiling out there that I want to auction off and get rid of. Attachments, beds, and things like that. I don't think I have to go. I guess I was gonna talk to you guys about that process. A public auction is the only way that the county can I think is the easiest way the county can dispose of these items. But I don't have like a capital asset form, and it's not really the fleet's equipment either. I guess I'm the one doing the vehicles, so these other departments approach me about, hey, can you auction this off for me? We don't use it, it's just sitting there. So I thought I'd just chat with you guys about that. On the next segment, I do have a couple pieces of equipment that I want to auction off. But I wanted to chat with you guys about all this other stuff that as we're moving it around in the yard and cleaning up the yard, people want to get rid of it. I guess I thought I'd ask you guys about your thoughts on this other stuff that we have laying around and the best way to go about that. Taking pictures, do you guys want to see it and improve these things, even though they're not capital assets, or kind of just your thoughts on that?
That would be, for me, I would want to know what the legalities of this are. And so maybe we could have a little research, by Jack and maybe talking with our legal group to see if that is all within the law.
Absolutely.
Before I would be ready to give you an opinion. I agree, it does need to be disposed of, and if we're not using it, but I want to make sure that everything's proper.
100%. I'm with you. That's exactly why I wanted to bring it up and make sure we cross our T's.
Have you talked to finance about it yet?
I've talked to finance about a few of the two that I'm gonna present.
Right.
I talked to finance about those. About the bed, the bed was one, and specifically I did talk to Allison, and she says she doesn't have a record of it because it was bought with the truck. So it was like the truck was this much, and the truck's 10 years old now, but the bed was gone by. So that's where it's kind of in a category where it's a capital asset when it was purchased, but the bed itself isn't the capital asset. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think one, like Commissioner Brown said, definitely check with legal, but I think even just having a inventory list of those items, just so we can be accountable, even if they were attachments with another piece of equipment that was purchased. I think we'll get more information, but I still think we should need an inventory list.
Absolutely.
of items. Commissioner?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm all for auctioning those off, and can you get with them and
Yeah, I just.
either talk to our temporary attorney or our future?
So,
Whatever.
Lance, our county attorney, interim county attorney is on the line. Lance, go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. As far as transfer of or getting rid of county assets, the board has broad authority whether to do that or not. But what I would say, and what I haven't had a chance to look at, is I'm not familiar with your specific policies, with Archuleta's specific policies with respect to getting rid of surplus or no longer used property. So the key is, with your broad discretion, to follow any policies you've already adopted. If you haven't adopted any policies, then again, you have broad discretion on what you do and how you do it. But I'm happy to look at any of the specifics you would like.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, and as I'm understanding this, Lance, this is Warren. This is a component off of one of our resources. So it's a truck bed off of a truck that we're looking at, not the truck in itself. And I guess the question in my mind, is this part of the collective asset, or can this be parted out and legally disposed of in accordance with our policies?
And the answer is yes. It's personal property, whether it's the entire truck or a portion of the truck. It's still personal property, and the board's going to have broad discretion on what to do. If you have any policies that you've implemented that you want followed, so through your purchasing division or otherwise, how you dispose of property, how you either put it up for auction or dispose of it, then I would follow that. But it doesn't make a difference that it's a truck bed versus the entirety of the truck. You'll still have the same authority.
Thank you.
So we'd still follow the procurement process.
Okay, and that's where that capital asset form that I've been filling out and presenting to you guys that you have to sign in order to do it, is specific to capital assets. And that's where these attachments, I don't believe, fall under that. 5,000 is that number, and that bed's not gonna sell for 5,000. So that's where I'm happy to still do that form, even though it's not that, if that's what you guys want. But that's where I thought I'd present it. I don't think the county has a like a form for an attachment. It's only for the capital asset, if that.
And
makes sense.
maybe we need a new form, right? If it's not a capital asset, just for these type of items.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure this is not going to be the first time or the last time that we talk about
Mhm.
attachments and non-capital assets that we want to dispose of. So
Mhm.
And it sounds like an asset's an asset, period.
that's right.
I mean, it's that's what,
That's right. Yeah.
what Lance just said.
Yes.
It doesn't matter the value, so
Mhm.
we need to.
So, yeah, we could go.
Go ahead, Lance.
Just to clarify, it's all property of the county, whether it's an asset as defined by your policy. I can't say, I don't have that in front of me. So if your policy is set up where it has to have a value of $5,000 or more to be considered a capital asset and be treated a certain way, that doesn't mean it's not county property. It just might mean it doesn't mean that definition as adopted by the county. So it is county property. It can be disposed of with the board's broad discretion. Again, and I apologize, I'm not familiar with the policy you've adopted, so I don't know where it fits. But it's no question it's county property. Whether it's a capital asset, I can't say. That's a definitional thing.
Great, thank you. Great.
Okay,
So follow up with finance.
absolutely. I'll do that. And then that summarizes that completes my summarization of the update. Do you guys have any questions for the fleet?
I don't have any.
Thank you.
I don't
Great.
appreciate what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So next topic?
Next topic would be the disposal of capital asset. And I apologize, I don't have that paperwork in front of me. Let me bring it up here. I think it's 107 and 101 are the two that I'm presenting here today. Unit 101 is a SkyTrack telehandler. I have had a conversation with Allison, and I don't know if this is considered a capital asset. This was one that was done on one of those 1031 government exchange programs. 1033, excuse me, thank you. And so the county never paid $5,000 for it. Oh, thank you, Tanya. The county didn't pay $5,000 for it. So again, I don't know how it's classified within the county property. It'll probably bring right around there, I'm guessing. The boom goes up and down, but it doesn't articulate. And we've taken it apart and know that it's gonna be an expensive fix, and we don't use that telehandler that much. It's gonna be close to $10,000 to fix it. I don't think it's worth that. So at this point in time, it's just sitting there collecting dust. And I believe it should be sold to someone who wants to use it or scrap or something like that. I don't think it's a capital asset, but I still wanted to present it because I want to do things the right way. So I had filled out this capital asset form. I think it'll bring in about $5,000. It was procured from the sheriff's office, and then it got to Road and Bridge over. We do have permission to sell it. I think we have to own it for a certain amount of time. We're all past the 1033 stuff. We have the right to sell it as long as I get permission to do so. Any questions on that one? Okay, the next one is, and I had pictures of these two too, that you guys probably have as well. The next one is a backhoe that was down at the landfill. It's a 2000 case with with a lot of hours on it. Let's put it that way. It's been used pretty rough, and it has hydraulic leaks. We put about $15,000 in this machine last year, and it's still having hydraulic issues. So they put a new pump on it, and it's still bleeding off pressure. So this is going to be an expensive fix. We're going to have to take the boom all the way off, replace all the transmission lines. It's going to be over $10,000 again. And I don't think the machine is worth that money to put it into it. We did it last year and it didn't hold up. It still has more problems. So I think a replacement for this is imminent, not right now. The landfill has rented a excavator to move the metal around, which is the majority of what this backhoe is used for, is to pick metal and move things at the landfill. So in the short term, they're operational, but the long term, I think this unit is going to need to be replaced. I don't think it's worth fixing right now. So in my eyes, we should auction it off and have that reserve to make it cheaper to replace. A replacement is 156,000 or about 140 some thousand, depending on John Deere or Caterpillar. That's kind of the ballpark numbers that I've got to replace this piece of equipment. And I think we'll probably get around 10,000 in an auction for this piece of equipment. But I don't think it's worth fixing and putting back into service, so it's just gonna sit there, until we decide to replace it or auction it off.
How much are we paying in renting one?
I'd have to check
About $6,000.
A month?
6,000.
It's a 317 excavator, so it's rather large compared to the backhoe, just because some of the metal is pretty heavy, and so we did get an excavator that would handle that load. And also with the new cell being built, it will help us out there move some of the wood / pile and get some of that out of the way.
How long will you rent it for, do you know?
Probably a couple months.
So that's a question as, yeah, we could put 6,000 or, but I know the situation with replacing things right at this moment, we kind of don't want to touch some of those funds that we have that we could possibly use for this. So it is something where we're sufficing, with $6,000 a month for a couple months, but that could potentially, if things were different, we could move that and go for a replacement now. Things look different, but I don't think we're in a position to do that.
Well, there's,
Previous conversation.
when we get previous conversations, it's about the need of the department, right? There's a want and there's an actual need.
Mhm.
And then with that need, are we spending money over and above what we could use to replace the machine?
Mhm.
So it's a need because you need to move stuff at the landfill all the time and potentially heavy stuff, I don't know how.
And they've got
often.
about 4 or 5 pieces of equipment, but I think it's the thumb. Like the loader doesn't have a way to grab something and pick it up. The loader can pick it up in a bucket, the dozer can push it, and the compactor can run it over. But the thumb to pick things up and move things around is the primary. It has a bucket and it can do other things too, but that is the primary function that
I think you have the funds to be able to replace it, selling it, disposing of this asset is a no-brainer. And you're really great at finding good deals. So, see if you can find something and then bring it to us.
Okay. Yes, I'd be happy to. Okay, if there's no more questions, I truly appreciate everyone's time this morning.
I do have a question. So you
Yes.
talked about disposal of 2 assets, 107 and 101.
Mhm.
The 101 was the SkyTrack. What was
Yes.
the 107?
And I'm looking at my pictures here, it's 106 and 101 are the
Oh.
two.
So is 106 the backhoe?
106 is the backhoe and 101 is the SkyTrack.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
That's 25 years old, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
99.
yeah,
It has been in service for a while and it's been used pretty rough down there too.
yeah. Well, yeah.
This, Commissioner, just so you know, this was a transfer from Road and Bridge to the landfill.
Okay,
And I think it had been close to 5 years ago, maybe, when we did that transfer, and so we replaced it, and then the landfill, of course, got the one that we went to replace, but here we are 5 years later. One needed to replace it again, so.
Landfill gets the hand-me-downs.
And that's
well.
one thing
that
we
makes
thought about
sense.
is Road and Bridge has one now. That's in pretty good shape. It's the one, it's 5 years old, so it's a pretty good one. So that is something I've thought about. You could move that to the landfill and get Road and Bridge a different one. They have problems running theirs on the highway because it doesn't have the leveling. It's just really shaky and bouncy. So that doesn't matter at the landfill, but that is something that I had thought about is giving that one there. And then replacing the one at Road and Bridge that gets used more on the highway, getting the newer one for them. And I've thought about doing that too. I think it really is gonna depend on funds and when we decide to do it, who has is it landfill or Road and Bridge or I think it's gonna be dependent upon that when we go to make a move.
Right, well, and two, again, even out of that, the disposal of the assets, the funds that you have there also, because you're disposing of their assets, right? So that money technically could be their funds that could be used for that.
Absolutely.
So,
We could make up the difference, sell the one to the landfill and then the landfill pays that and then the difference could come out of that was one of my first thoughts, but that would be the best way to do it.
yep, so, yeah, and the 15,000 on the 20, spending 15,000 on, oh no, that was the backhoe,
Mhm.
yeah. Never mind.
Yes, last year.
Yeah, never mind. Moving on. Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Hope you guys have a good meeting.
Good work you're doing.
Yes, good job. All right, Jenny Green.
Great. Morning.
Good morning, commissioners. Good back. All right, well, I thought it was time to, I guess, give you guys an update. I will start with, so I included the most recent director report in the packet for you guys. I also included, which I told Tanya I didn't need to pull up on the screen, Dave Santucci, who's been the consultant with the Colorado Tourism Office. He provided an update to the tourism board last week. We've been working with him on the destination blueprint effort through CPO. So what I wanted to, I guess, just kind of give you guys an update on our lodging tax collections from the town side are looking strong this point of the year. We have not received Q1 from the county yet, should be any second now. I know that they got, the town got March sales tax, so county lodging tax should be any day now. So I don't know exactly how Q1 is going to shake out, but it does seem as if we will be up over last year. Just town collections for February, we're up 25% over 2024. If you look November through February, which was, I think we all know, a very dry period for us. We were up 19.7% or a little over $45,000 over the same period last year. While locals don't like lack of snow for lots of different reasons, me personally, fire concerns are forefront. Our visitors are not as concerned about driving into the mountains with those kinds of conditions. So I think that does kind of lend itself to that. Let's see, March collections at this point are fuzzy for the town. We're still missing 6 payments. So just based on if 3 of the 6 that have not paid yet are flat over February, March will be up for the town. So let's see, there are a lot of items in the update here. We remain extremely busy. I guess with that said, we are a staff of 3 full-time employees. If you look at other destinations around the state, I'm going to say we're one of the smallest teams out there.
But most powerful.
We definitely put out a lot of work.
So when you say we're really busy, you mean you and your office staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you gonna touch base? Hearing this last week was pretty impressive, what you all have done compared to La Plata and other entity or
Yeah, so
since they're doing.
yeah, one of the things that Dave Santucci provided last week to the tourism board is basically, and I was at a CADMO meeting. CADMO is the Association of Destinations from around the state. There were 25 destinations at that meeting. Basically right now, in 2024, the state was seeing about a 2.4% decrease in occupancy statewide. If I look at 2023 numbers, they had roughly about 93 million visitors coming into the state of Colorado. That's about a 2.5 million visitor drop, which is rather significant. Now, if you look at our lodging tax, we are not necessarily seeing the drop that many of the other destinations are seeing. When they are looking at basically the STAR report statewide, Pagosa is kind of the second highest destination right now. Whereas the numbers I heard from Durango, their March was down 8% in lodging tax, 7% in occupancy. Now we still do not have occupancy or ADR, which is average daily rate from lodging properties. Last I have heard is they are not interested in providing that information. So unfortunately, we still have a very limited view as to the overall impact that we have with visitors. So best I can do is, speculate on lodging tax collections. We are not significantly down from the height of the pandemic. I would say that there's no way our lodging properties are charging more than they did at the height of the pandemic when demand was high and supply was limited. So with that in mind, it does indicate that we have more visitors in town than what we have. At least prior to 2021, I think was the height of the pandemic as far as revenue.
Do you think that Lodgers Association will help maybe get some numbers that are gonna be helpful?
My understanding is they have collectively decided no, that they are not interested in providing that information. I have a meeting with them this afternoon because they would like to know what we do apparently. So I will continue to try to explain all of the different things that we work on and all of the free resources that they have that they can take advantage of.
So when you say you're meeting with the new Lodgers Association, which I'm glad that they finally
Absolutely.
have organized and got that together, that's wonderful. Because they've had a lot of complaints, but now that they are organized and are able to let us know exactly what it is they want in a organized manner, I think would be better. So this meeting this afternoon, are you meeting with the whole organization?
I'm not exactly sure. I can let you know around 4:30 who I exactly was meeting with. Commissioner Ransom was in a meeting that we had last week with 4 of the lodgers. And so I'm not exactly sure how many more will be at today's meeting.
So, I mean, I
Those
think,
were officers, right? Maybe.
3 of the 4 were.
Okay.
Yeah, so the chair is Anne Marie, co-chair is Jesse Hensel with the Springs, and then I don't remember the individual from Mountain Landing. She is the secretary treasurer. And then Sarah Mayshew is currently the rep, the lodging rep on the tourism board.
well, I think it's great that you're meeting with them. I think they should present themselves to the electeds, both to the town and the county. That would be great. And then obviously your primary responsibility is to communicate and to generate business for our local economy, right? So to bring in tourists, I guess. And I know a lot of people don't like that's what you do, right? But that's how we survive. And until we diversify our economy and have another means of revenue for our county, that's what we are. We are a tourism destination, period. So your main function and goal is to get tourists here and advertise them. The locals, we are not, or maybe I should ask, because I'm not the expert in the room. Who is your audience? Is it the locals?
Visitors.
The visitors?
That's how I consider, yes. Now, another piece, it's more than just bringing visitors to the area. It's also educating the visitors once they get here. Many of them are, maybe not familiar with mountain destinations. They may not deal with fire restrictions where they live, or, hunting safety. They show up in October during hunting season and they don't realize that you should wear orange. So we do hand out free hunting vests, the Blaze Orange, as a loan to visitors, and we have very inexpensive ones we hand out, and luckily they all return. So because they're not nice enough for people
Right.
wanting to keep them. We hand out free water bottles at the visitor center because a lot of people don't realize that, at elevation, staying hydrated is critical. And while there's water in beer, there's better ways of getting water. And so that's a large part of what we do, is just trying to make sure that visitors understand how to safely recreate in the area and how to protect, the backyard that we have. So we are very soon, we'll be pushing out a video on how to properly douse a campfire. And, using language from the Forest Service. And a lot of our efforts has been in conjunction with the Forest Service. They obviously, they have some limitations now, but we have been a communication arm and working in partnership with them. And yeah, so there are a lot more updates in that packet. Do you guys have any other questions for me?
Well, I think I just have a comment. I would, because you guys are so busy and it's only three of you, I think your time and your staff's time would be better utilized, focusing on your mission, your responsibilities in your role. I'm not saying not to meet with the Lodges Association. I'm saying, yes, meet with them, do that. But I heard in the community that you may be presenting to some other organizations. And I just personally, I don't feel like, since you are kind of sort of part-time our employee as well, I don't think that's in my own opinion, my fellow commissioners may think different, but I don't think that's a wise use of your time. I think, if there's organizations that want to meet with you or talk to you, maybe it's materials you can just send them and provide to them versus spending a couple of hours, really, because by the time you create your presentation and then actually present it, it's at times can be time consuming. So
I would say most weeks I am in meetings for about 25 hours out of the work week. So, luckily for everyone, I'm not limited to 40 hours a week. So I just get work done, when that's where weekends and evenings come into play a lot of times.
right, but it's about utilizing your time wisely and really focusing on what it is that you've been tasked with from the electives.
So in July, when I present to the Rotary, if everyone in the community would show up, that'd be great. And then I could limit that to one presentation.
Why are you presenting to Rotary?
The town manager asked me to. So I've still yet to determine who I'm allowed to say no to. It does not seem to be him.
Well,
Given
your
his my
boss.
direct report, yeah.
Yes.
But yes, yes. We've had this conversation, the joint town county meeting. There are a lot of people that ask of things, and I try to be as accommodating as possible.
And I think that was the goal. I mean, the goal was when we talked about revising the IGA, we talked about why we were doing that. And it was really to give you better direction on what it is that you are supposed to be doing versus what all the asks are in the community. I think I will have a different conversation, so thank you.
Okay.
But
I've looked into cloning. It's not an option
Right.
at the moment, so.
I do want to commend you. If you sit in these meetings and see the stats across the state and look, Big Brother La Plata, you're doing an amazing job. You really are. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Growing pains are difficult. That's why they're called growing pains. And within our community, there are groups that want to have representation. And historically, I think tourism has been it. And so I think it's kind of a natural process that many folks that want to have a voice come to tourism. Now, whether that's the most appropriate or not, I think that's certainly a topic of discussion. But we're changing. We're changing, and hopefully we can have you and your group appropriately directed and within your realm specifically. So it's just going to take a while, I think, to iron some of these things out, but we're going to get there. And hopefully, as we have these joint meetings and we kind of collectively give direction, it's going to make it easier for you. I hope. We'll see.
Yeah.
Compartmentalize is what I was looking for.
Okay.
So.
Well, good job.
Thank you.
Everything that you do. Item 4.
Okay. Two of you were commissioners when this item first came before you in 2023. So at that time, the tourism board and John got an update during the tourism board meeting as well. So he should be up to speed on this. So 2 years ago, both the town and county approved moving $500,000 from lodging tax reserves into a restricted fund earmarked for a event venue. Now, at that time, the tourism board did not have a project or a location in mind. The intent was to put money aside for the future opportunity of perhaps using it to for a grant match. because we knew that a venue, whatever it turned out to be, would be extremely expensive. And if we did not have the funds set aside, the likelihood of being able to come up with the matching funds would be difficult. Now here we are 2 years later, and the multi-purpose pavilion, which Brian Calabaletta, I'm sure has been before you guys many times. He definitely likes the tourism board. But we've been working with Brian and the multi-purpose pavilion for years. The tourism board has been very supportive of all of their efforts. I think we're all aware that the challenges they have of maintaining ice. And in years when we actually have snow, being able to shovel the snow off of the ice in order to have a functioning rink has been challenging. I think in most winters, they've been able to operate about 30 days out of the winter. What they are proposing is a multi-purpose pavilion with a refrigerated ice rink that would allow them to maintain ice 5 to 6 months out of the year. It would be a covered facility, so they would not be shoveling snow off of the ice. Knock on wood that snow does happen again in the future. So basically, they had come to the tourism board a couple of years ago to put a roof on their existing facility out at South Pagosa Park. At that time, town council then kind of at the 11th hour opted to change their location and move them to South Yamaguchi, which is just south of the pickleball courts. And they gave them, I believe, a 3-year window to come up with the funding in order to secure that location. They are maybe about 1.5 years into that process. They had attempted to pursue some grants that other entities pursued instead. So they have now identified some new grant opportunities and have asked the tourism board to basically provide those funds as a as a matching grant for various pursuits. The board did agree to make this recommendation. I took this to town council last week. They also agreed. I guess worst case scenario, if they're awarded funds, those funds would be used as the match. If they do not receive any grant funds, that 500,000 remains intact and will not be spent. Now, their initial intent with this was the multi-purpose pavilion. They have designed it to where it could be perhaps a year-round event venue as well. We do not have the specifics on how the venue will be managed or run. I think at this time that group is looking as a nonprofit to do that. I think that those details can be worked out down the road. I think it would be a good problem to have to figure out how we're managing a venue for the community. But this would also provide a great winter activity that maybe is not as dependent on Mother Nature. I don't know how warm we can keep the ice cool, daytime temperatures warm wise, but yeah, hopefully, anyway, so that is the ask before you guys, and I can answer any questions if you have any.
Jenny, in looking at this for an event center, now what I had in my mind was a venue that could accommodate year round. Yet in the plan, I don't see a single thing that speaks to anything other than the ice rink, Zambonis, food truck, bleachers, warming shed, skate shack. I mean, these are all very specific.
Yes.
And in my recollection, this was a place where we could bring maybe a festival, bands, what have you. But there's nothing in here that even speaks to any of that. Is there something else that?
Well, the covered venue is really a critical piece because even in the summer with monsoons, the large tent that would accommodate a festival is about $4,000 or $5,000 a day to rent.
Yeah.
So this would provide an avenue for those events to be held under cover. The stage that we have fits in this venue as well. So they would be able to drive the stage in and it would turn into an event venue. I have been at conferences where, and this may be an additional expense down the road, if this is an option, but you can actually put something down over the ice. And I've had conferences on an ice skating rink that is covered. And so there are opportunities to do that. There is the option to have retractable walls that come down on the venue as well, that may make it a little more palatable in the winter, but bringing heaters in is kind of the same thing that we do with large tents
Yeah.
already. So I think there's a lot of opportunity with that. The one question that came up with the tourism board, I may have been the one that asked the question. I don't believe they have factored restrooms into the venue. I think that's a critical piece of this. And town council member Martinez asked about parking. Now, the location in South Yamaguchi, there is definitely ample parking in that area. And the plans that I've seen from Parks and Rec of the development of that area would include parking as well. So I think that's another piece of this overall puzzle.
And I was going to ask about that. And in addition to that, is there a place where, let's say there was a band, is there enough area within that development where people attending can view from the outside? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or asking?
Potentially.
Okay, well, you know, like.
They might need to grow some grass to
Something
make that
like
more palatable. Yes.
But there is adequate area for.
That is a large area. I don't know exactly the acreage, and I don't know specifically all of the plans that Parks and Rec has. But any of those plans require funding that I don't believe they currently have secured. So for now, yes, I'd say there's lots of available space.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner?
Yeah, do you, and I'm just not familiar with what's transpired in the past, in the anticipated income it has the town and county both at 250,000, is that something that has been agreed upon in the past, or is that a projection, or?
From the multipurpose pavilion, my assumption is that you guys are just gonna send them back to the tourism board. That's how it usually works out. So I think that's the multipurpose pavilion's optimistic view. I don't believe a formal request has come before the town or the county. In speaking with Brian, they have a lot of donors that are willing to put money in if the town and county put money in. I think that offering this 500,000 for a grant match would make it more appetizing for the donors to provide additional funds as well. So I think that there may be an ask, depending on how much money they come up with elsewhere.
Right.
The overall cost of the venue, as they have it designed now, is $3.5 million.
Okay.
And I don't know when that estimate was provided, because
Right.
we all know costs change. And so I think that they did factor in a 20% contingency, and hopefully that is still safe.
Right. I don't have any questions. We chatted about this, so I'm good. Great.
Thanks.
You up for a
Um,
question that's not related to this?
Sure.
You,
If you guys want to keep talking to me.
you probably know the legislation with the potential increase of
Absolutely.
tourism. What's your view? What, I mean, obviously, everybody that's involved wants to find revenue. But do you think it'll have an impact on tourism, or what's your view?
Yeah, there's a lot of different factors right now. I do kind of feel like Colorado's at a tricky point at the moment. The pandemic may not have done any favors. I think you've seen reports around the world of over tourism, and at least we're not to that level. With attacking, tour buses or things of that nature that you see. The state, Colorado Tourism Office has had the same funding level for the last 10 years, which is about $20 million a year. When you compare Colorado to other states, we're currently in the lower 30s of funding for tourism as a state. 10 years ago, we were probably in the top 10. You look at destinations like California, they have about a $250 million annual budget. Now, obviously, there are a lot of needs. Cost of living has skyrocketed in the state, and so that's where all these measures are coming into play. I believe that many of the counties are going to go after an increased lodging tax. the diversification of how those funds are used definitely takes away from inviting visitors to the state. So my assumption is, yes, that will impact things. I don't know how much it will impact things. We are not the only destination that will be considering this. La Plata County, they went to voters last fall and changed, 70% of lodging tax towards housing and childcare. The new bill opens it up for broader infrastructure as well as emergency services. There's no shortage of needs out there. I think it's a delicate balance of a lot of the mountain communities heavily depend on tourism as a vital part of the economy. I think we'll just have to see. Now, Colorado is the poster child of what not to do with eliminating funds, and that happened in the early 90s. There was 2 years where we did not have funding for tourism at all. And it took about 20 years to regain the market share lost from those 2 years. So you have destinations without as much marketing power as what they've had, and you have now statewide without as much reach. The Colorado Tourism Office has been informed that they will be dealing with cuts beginning in 2027. They don't know exactly what those cuts look like, but it's coming. And that is all well known. Now, if you guys pursue a ballot measure, you won't be alone, if that helps. I've also heard of different measures at the state level. I don't know where those stand. So I think that November 26th will be a very competitive election cycle for funding around the state.
Right.
So if you get in 25, maybe not as much competition on the ballot. So yeah, I don't have a good answer.
Yeah.
I know that we will just have to be creative in how we're reaching potential visitors and making sure. Colorado is definitely an aspirational state to visit. We're, very lucky, and I would say it's somewhat easier to promote Colorado than maybe other states with larger budgets. But with that, you still have to remind people that you're here and invite them to visit.
And it's cheaper to keep returning
Absolutely.
visitors versus trying to get new ones.
Yes.
I've heard from a couple of lodgers and they think that we should increase our lodging tax. And they don't feel like it's gonna impact them because obviously, it's paid by the tourist. I don't think, in my own opinion, I wouldn't reduce the amount that is given to, tourism. We could definitely split off the excess, whatever if we chose to increase it to roads, our infrastructure and housing, childcare. I mean, those are the things that obviously, like you said, the need is great and there's a lot of it.
Yes. Now I've heard that the town is also considering pursuing an increase in their lodging tax. The town is at 4.9% now. What I think is more impactful to a visitor is the overall tax rate. So lodging tax plus sales tax and where that puts us around the state. I think the town's lodging tax is on the high end when you look at the combined tax rate.
Yes.
Again, we don't know what the comfort level for visitors is. Will it move them to other destinations? They're not going to see that most likely until they check out. So it might impact a return visit. But then, I was just in Denver for meetings not long ago, and you look at all the different taxes that they have. Yeah, so. But they have more services than we have as well. So there's a transit fee, there's they have a tourism improvement district, plus a lodging tax, plus sales tax. And yeah, I think we will see. I think a lot of this, most likely there will be research companies that make a lot of money evaluating the impact of some of these decisions that we're discussing now.
Well, I think, with the increase of sales tax, proposition from the town, and if they're thinking about increasing their lodging tax, I think that puts the county in a tough spot of us not being able to raise our lodging tax because it will, the people coming to visit will already be taxed out.
Yeah, right now, the county is capped at 2%.
Right.
That is a very low tax rate. So I think there's room for the county to grow before there's maybe over taxation.
One might even argue that it doesn't even allow us to keep up with infrastructure needs as a result of our
Right.
tourist guests.
Right. Yes,
Right. Yeah, okay.
we try to get them to walk lightly
I
on
know.
the sidewalk.
You do a fabulous job.
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
When they quit ruining your roads.
Impacting the landfill.
All right, well, that's all we have for you.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
guys.
Appreciate
Thanks for what
you
you
do.
do.
All right, Mike Torres, discussion regarding regulation number 31.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
So we're back again to discuss this regulation 31 that the state has put out to pass this year. That's going to reflect some changes to all locally owned landfills, which means, I guess, municipalities. The Air Pollution Control Division is the one that's putting this on, the APCD. They do have a commission, which is the Air Quality Control Commission, which is the AQCC. Our deadline to request party status is tomorrow, May 14th by 5 p.m. In mine and Jack's efforts, we've decided to have Lance write the letter for us. I did give you a kind of like it's Mesa County's letter that they wrote requesting their party status. Ours will be hopefully somewhat similar to this. I did sit in a meeting with them yesterday, and we do have to send this to 4 different people at the state altogether when we do submit this. And so just to go over what this bill is requiring us, or I guess not bill, but regulation is requiring us to do is it's going to limit the methane gas that landfill can produce. And so they're talking about a reduction of 10% of 1% of the state. So did I say that right? So 10% of 1%. So
They're looking to take the level from 500 to 200.
right. So essentially, it's going to be very minimal for the amount of cost. We're looking at $3 to $5 million to install a methane gas collection system. They are talking about doing enclosed flares as opposed to industrial flares, biofilters, which would require like is it compost? So, yeah, so like a compost mix that I don't know where we would get that from. In our conversations, they don't even know where, they don't even think the state has that much compost available to meet the requirements for every landfill to get it. So there's a lot of things that they're presenting in this that don't really make sense.
Don't make sense or don't exist?
Don't make sense, like the compost.
Well, it is because it doesn't exist.
Right, exactly. So essentially the request for party status is going to be name, address, brief summary of the issues, and of course, the company that we're Archuleta County, of course. And so today I'm just going to ask for you to keep you informed and let you know what's going to be coming down the pipeline with this. And Lance is on. So Lance, if you want to give any update, now's your time to step in.
Thank you. I don't have a whole lot to add. Party status deadline is tomorrow, as Mike pointed out already. The form that was followed by, or the document that Mesa County put together is a good form for Archuleta County to use. As far as filling in some of the details, though, I would need staff support on that. I'm happy to sign a letter. I'm happy to prepare it for someone else. I suspect that you're going to want someone else to be the representative contact person because my time with the county is likely going to be over when this really becomes an issue. I do understand that Mesa County is going to take the lead for kind of a coalition of counties with concerns on this issue to file objections to the rule in the rulemaking process. And I would assume that Archuleta County would want to be part of that coalition. I think the issues are going to overlap quite a bit. I think it might be important to the Air Quality Control Commission that what happens in Archuleta County is unlikely to affect the Front Range. Most of their regulations are relative to and related to what happens on the Front Range. You will not affect that. And so I don't know that we need to add that to our request for party status, but those are the type of comments that I think need to be submitted to try and get these rules to be more manageable, because the state tends to not really care about the impact to local jurisdictions. It doesn't affect them. But if they can understand that the regulations won't have any positive impact, maybe they'll care a little bit more. So the coalition matters. Party status for Archuleta County does matter. And hopefully the board can authorize that today so it can go out. And again, it doesn't matter who signs it. I'm happy to. It can be your county manager. I know Mesa County, it was signed by their Director of Solid Waste and Sustainability. I don't know if Archuleta County has such a position, but that's the person that they've used as their contact, and that's who sent in the letter.
It makes sense in my opinion, it makes sense for you to be that person to sign it.
Yeah, and I'm fully willing and capable to do that, so.
And to be that contact person.
Yeah.
We have to approve it as a board.
Maybe this is just operational.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just want y'all to know
Yeah.
what we're doing, and I'd like to highlight a couple of other things that, so some of the triggers in Rule 31 are based on your size, et cetera, but at a minimum, regardless of size, Mike already talked about the bio cover. But two other things, one is waste in place reporting. So we will have to begin providing annual updates to the state on waste in place. So this is a new requirement, so it's a form and it's something we've never had to do before. And those waste in place figures will have to include both will also include inert materials. So that is something that even the larger landfills have not had to do. The second is under methane monitoring, the division that Mike referenced with the state, they now have a remote methane monitoring device, which is a drone. So they will fly the drones without notice over the landfills. And if methane emissions are detected at our landfill, we would receive a notice and have 5 days to investigate the source, and then only 10 additional days to complete the corrective action.
And the systems that they're wanting to put in place, it's not just the system alone, it's also the maintenance and the staffing. I mean, we're talking about either a consultant to do the reporting of the methane gases to the state, like Jack had mentioned. It's a whole nother department essentially of having to manage this thing. So like I said, it's something that I don't think is very feasible for us in the future. And yeah, I definitely want to join up with Mesa County and get this.
And those are the meetings that we've been having, that Lance mentioned, the coalition. And obviously Mesa County is not Archuleta County, but based on Mesa County's preliminary figures, they believe that once this program is fully implemented, they will be looking at $2 million per year in expenses just for this program.
In the states.
And quickly, that doesn't mean installation, that's just the annual cost.
In the state's remediation to take care of that additional cost was to increase dumping fees. And so, of course, I mean, that could lead more to illegal dumping, midnight dumps. It's not a good fit for us. So we're going to do what we can with your guys' support.
Commissioners?
Yeah, Lance, I don't know if you can answer this, but obviously, this is another unfunded mandate with some insanity mixed in. What would be the ramifications or the consequences if we were just to opt out?
Well, it's too early to say from what I know. I think the state would take the position that if they implement this regulation and if it puts requirements on you that you simply elect not to follow, they would treat it as a pure enforcement issue. And there's still going to be expenses related to that. The state's position on unfunded mandates is, yes, there's a statute that says there won't be any, but subsequent regulations and subsequent statutes aren't bound by that. And the court has decided in a case against Arapahoe County that that statute doesn't control when the state passes a newer statute, which does create an unfunded mandate. So they're unconcerned about unfunded mandates. I think your best tact is to try and get the regs to be manageable. I think you can assume at this point there will be regs, but try and get them tailored to meet your capabilities at a minimum, if not your local needs. So I think opting out, whatever that term means, is probably not going to be ignored by the state.
Right. And John, just so you're aware, in the regulation, it does state that if they do fly a drone over and see a methane gas, they have it's 450,000 tons of waste in place is the threshold, or 1,800. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but if they see a methane gas leakage that is big enough to capture on their drone, they're gonna release a statement saying you need to repair this leak, or the landfill closes. And that's in the regulation. And so, I can't quote which section it is, but it's in there. So, yeah. So basically either follow the guidelines or close the landfill.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, this all comes down to the taxpayers paying for unfunded mandates. And maybe the better option is that we just close the landfill, because the taxpayers then are going to pay to transfer it elsewhere. But that continuing cost and maintenance and compliance with the unfunded mandates and the overreach by the state will not apply to our location any longer. This is just getting to the point where it's seemingly unmanageable. The endless unfunded mandates that come our way. And our revenues do not grow significantly year to year, and apparently neither do the states, considering their fiscal issues that they're facing from overspending with the budget that they have.
Well, and to me, it's almost like what they want, in a sense.
Well, it's pushing us that way. Because how much can we continue to expend? Because if we don't get a new source of revenue, we take from some other source, some other service that we're providing to cover that cost. It's not newly generated monies. And we have a difficult time providing services that we have now. At some point, there seems to be, there has to be some moderation here of what's coming down the pipe. And as was spoke, Pagosa Springs, much of Western Colorado is much different than the Front Range metropolitan areas. And sitting in these legislative meetings month after month after month, there's little regard or consideration for communities like ours. And endlessly, we go to these legislators and we try to explain, as smaller communities, as financially challenged communities, and explain these nuances, and they are just not, seemingly they're not listened to. And we continue to have to find these monies somewhere, and we find them in services that we already provide, and we take away from arguably some of the most vulnerable populations within our communities to comply with these unfunded mandates. I support what is being done here by Mesa County, and then I think we should continue to remind the state that one size does not fit all. And there has to be some consideration given for the resources that we have available, and more importantly, for those that we don't.
Well, to Commissioner Brown's point, we are the majority, we are not the minority. When you think of Colorado, we are rural communities. And so for these type of regulations, even, new legislative bills that are introduced, it's for the minority of the Front Range and not really taking into consideration the majority of Colorado, which is rural communities. I don't think it's an option for us to close our landfill. I think that will just lead to other problems, like you said, you know, illegal dumping, midnight dumps, things like that.
And I agree.
I know, but, and two, you know, the other issues that will put onto our community of having to transfer that to other places, which just causes more problems for everybody. And hopefully the state can see that, because it will be more problematic than solution-based, what they're trying to do. I support what you're doing. I support that we join Mesa County in this, because the madness has to stop. I understand maybe the underlying, you know, silver lining of this, of what they want to try to control. But at these costs and at what expense that the county's going to have to put forth, I don't think it's reasonable. I just don't. So thank you for taking this on. Thank you for trying to wrap your head around all of these things, because it can be a tough task. So I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. I don't have anything else.
No. Yeah, I'd like to add one more thing. I think, and I'll just have you stay for the admin report, because that works. But I think one of the things that makes this also so onerous is that there's no incrementalism.
Yes.
Again, it dropped from 500 to 200, so there's no incremental by year or anything to allow counties or whoever owns a landfill to get to that point. And from my reading, and I'm sure I could have missed some other items, but there's only one thing in the rule that I found they took an incremental approach on, and that is off-gassing or flaring, to flare the methane. And they're giving until 2029 before open flaring has to end. That's the only thing I saw that was given an incremental timeline. Everything else will go into effect immediate.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. So with that, there's no agenda review, so we'll go into admin report.
Go ahead, Mike, if you want to talk about what you got going on, then I'll go.
So we're awaiting the contracts for Lance to review for our, the landfill. He did get back with us on that, so as soon as I get those revisions, we'll get that back to SEH to make those edits and potentially have the contractor re-signed. So kind of waiting on that. Everything else is going fairly well out there. We're just working, trying to get areas cleaned up to where it's not going to affect the construction of the new cell. I actually have a meeting today with Mountain Valley Excavation Construction. I can't remember which one it is, but out of the whole 10 that I have, but meet with them today to go over some operations stuff down at the landfill. They want to bring in a trailer and set up. I think I'm going to have them set up on that southern gate. So there's that. Road and Bridge is currently working in Arbalese, applying mag to the Arbalese area. And then they'll be making their way into town and then out to Chromo. We have had a lot of complaints on roads recently with the rain from last week. We did blade roads, and of course, they just fell apart with all the moisture that we got. So the guys are hopefully going to be able to get to those as soon as possible. Probably going to have them work on Fridays a few hours to try and address some of the troubled areas that did fall apart. And so for the public, if you get complaints, just say we're working on it, and we're hoping to be in the core area, which would be town, in the next 2 weeks, depending on weather. So hopefully the weather sticks together. The transit facility, 2 weeks left. Hopefully they're saying the final walkthrough the 20th. It was up there yesterday. Asphalt's looking great. They're supposed to be starting paving Harmon Park and Cornerstone Drive today. And hopefully wrapping that up this week. The landscaping looks good, and yeah, it turned out really nice. So what else do I got? I think that's it.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
So last week I met with Lisa Poole, who is Senator Hickenlooper's aide. Had a very good visit. She visited with the hospital, with myself, with the town, and then went to the CDC annual dinner. So talked about what the senator has going on, and then she asked about our needs. And so I focused, on a lot of the federal funding issues, the things that's going on, and asking for her assistance in keeping us informed when they hear of things that could potentially cause an issue with funding. Also last week, for the extension office. So Terry hosted the regional CSU meeting, which lasted 3 days, and that was a great success. Also, last week, as did Commissioner Medina, but Pam testified for the state to bring up her views on the proposed WUI code, the Wildland Urban Interface. Mike, Public Works also assisted Tanya Stedman with removing all of the items out of a outbuilding on the fairgrounds. And right now we're just waiting from written confirmation to say that we can go ahead and demo it. We just want something in writing other than a verbal to remove that building.
But wasn't that a request to us? It wasn't that we wanted to go do it.
Correct.
It was requested that we remove
Right,
it.
it was a request that we remove it. And then this Thursday, I will be presenting to the Rotary Club on our county strategic plan. So.
Great. All right, if no questions for Jack, commissioners, other items of mutual interest?
I'll go too quick out there. Just a reminder, this is National Police Week.
Mhm.
So if you see a deputy, a patrol officer, or a trooper, say hi.
Hmm.
Tell them thank you. I'm sure that they would love to hear that. Just a reminder to the board, I'll be out attending the Western Interstate Region next week. This is a part of CCI's interaction with the National Association of Counties, or NACO. And we're going to be covering topics from mental health to ag, energy, the NEPA process, public land budget strategies and deliverable, and housing on public lands and forest management, just to name a few. Thank you.
Sure.
So you'll be out at next week's meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to do my best to attend it virtually,
Zoom, okay,
especially if Zoom works.
right.
That's fixed. I just couldn't let it go.
Let's see, we got the school committee tonight, and looks to me like they're gonna come forward with their recommendation to the school board. We don't know quite yet what that recommendation is gonna be, but it sure sounds like they're gonna potentially recommend a bond issue. And at least the discussion so far has been not this year, but would be in 2026. So as soon as we find out, I'll let you guys know.
Thank you.
And that's it.
That's it. I have a couple updates. I will start with my most recent and work backwards. I had the pleasure of presenting our strategic plan to the Dems yesterday, which went really well. Good questions that came back from it, so that went fabulous. And then, as Jack mentioned, Pam and I both testified. I testified on Thursday, she testified on Friday, and then I stayed on the call all day Friday because they were actually going through, they being the Colorado Wildfire Resilience Code Board. They were actually going through that document, and based on all the testimony, because there was tons of commissioners, not only in person, but online, that had testified, but so the board went through that document, and based on all of the comments that were given, they were kind of vetting out that document. So There was some rough moments because they all couldn't agree on a map or a definition or, so it was very interesting. I'll say that. I just, it reminds me how well we all get along. So thank you, commissioners. So that was fun. I also attended it was a RMRI, which is a fire forest screening and a panel discussion. It was all a Zoom meeting, but we watched a little video about fire and what it does. And, afterwards we talked about after fire, what do we do with the debris? How do we stage materials, people, needs like water and clothing? So it was really just talking about and showing, some of the things that could be done, should be done in those type of situations. And then how do we protect the watersheds? And then 3 rules that they highlighted at the end was communicate, coordinate, and collaborate. So I think a lot of those 3 rules can also be used in a situation that we are more proactive versus reactive. I mean, it works on both ends of a fire, but I think we need to do more, and I think we have started to do more when we talk about fire. I know we just did a workshop up at CSU about fire management or fire preparedness. That's what it was, fire preparedness. And I think there's still more for us to do, and I think we'll just have to do it more in collaboration with emergency management. But I still feel like the county can provide more education. And whatever that might look like, I think we can do more. I think we need to be better prepared, and even to, like what Jenny was saying, educating the tourists, because sometimes, they can be the problem. Lately, the fires have not been the tourists, the fires have been, caused by locals. So we all just need to be educated and reminded about things that we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. So there's that. And then I also attended the Southwest Colorado Small Business Conference that was in Ignacio. That was an all-day event. It was really great. They had a lot of great sessions, breakout sessions, everything from leadership to AI to, and I'm not in AI, so I didn't attend any of those. So, but there was a lot of leadership and, just discussion. And I brought a lot of materials back. They had a lot of vendors. I brought even information back, which I shared with Commissioner Brown to share with the Main Street program. Thank you, for loans for businesses and different opportunities that they may have. So there's that. Oh, and I did attend the Veteran Affairs NACO committee meeting that we do monthly. And there we talked about some new resources that are coming online for mental health. And then they also talked about a program, a home program just for veterans. And it's not the VA loan. It's a different program that when veterans get in trouble and cannot make their house payment for their VA loan, there's another program that they can go so that they don't have to do a foreclosure. But that program may be coming to an end, but it's still available until next year. But I checked here in our county and not many people use that. They do use the VA loan, but they have not had the opportunity or the need, I should say, to use that other program for them to avoid foreclosure, which is a good thing. I believe that's a great thing. So there's that. And that's all I have. So.
Follow up one real quick. Does anybody know off the top of their head, town county meeting
Next Monday, I believe.
Is it, will you
Yeah.
still be gone?
I vote.
Yeah.
I was just gonna throw out, maybe if we talk about these potential election decisions in that meeting, because I think we've got to address it here fairly soon, because we're gonna run out of time if we want to look at 2025. And I also have a concern. You can only extract so much money out of an economy, local economy, without harming it. And I think we've all got to work together on timing on these different issues. Even though the tourism will be paid, by outside bringing money in, but still, if the school comes and the pause impact fees going on and the LPEA is gonna be coming for money. I just think maybe we could talk to the town and say, let's coordinate, what are you guys thinking? And so that we can make some type of decision.
Mhm.
Cause I am concerned about too much, asking for too much too soon. That's a lot of money coming down the pike.
Good point, John.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, we can get that maybe either added, we got plenty of time to add that to
Yep.
the agenda.
Sorry.
No, that's good. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, with that, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will see you next week.